Imagine one night you fall asleep with the window cracked open, and sometime in the darkness you're startled awake by an explosion that rattles your home. Is it the train? It must be the train. And when you rise and peer cautiously out your front window, you see a strange fog pushing down the street between houses and trees, an amber glow billowing above the lights, coming toward you. Before you remember that cracked window, you catch the first whiff of gas. Anywhere in America, there is likely a train running within a whistle of your home. Now imagine you live in western Montana, in the folds of the Rocky Mountains, in a small town, a former railroad town, with hundreds of souls sound asleep, men, women, and children, families, dreaming, oblivious of the world outside their windows. As one Alberton, Montana man would put it, me and my family was as healthy as can be. On April 11, 1996, we woke up and all that changed. Hi, and welcome to the podcast of my two-book series, GASSED, The True Story of a Toxic Train Derailment. I'm Ron Scholl. Each episode will chronicle the story of the 1996 Alberton, Montana train derailment, which resulted in the largest ever release of chlorine from a U.S. train disaster. Imagine a 90-ton tank of liquid chlorine, 180,000 pounds, explosively converting to chlorine gas as another train car gouges a hole in it. Then imagine an adjacent car of liquid caustic waste popping open at one end, and the two chemicals mixing together. This is the start of disaster in Alberton, Montana, where spreading gas quickly kills one train rider while the crew struggles to escape before they too might succumb. Next, the gas spreads to the interstate highway, and then toward those sleeping homes. We'll follow the chaotic day of the derailment in rural Montana as a small town is turned upside down and over 1,000 people flee a gas cloud that injures hundreds. As a confused evacuation begins in the dark, emergency responders aren't even sure where the derailment is. Worse, many responders arrive without respiratory protection. The 911 call center is swamped. Responders are confused, evacuees are confused, and the medical threat from chlorine gas is underestimated. Repeatedly, people are evacuated after the gas has already arrived. Soon, area hospitals are overwhelmed, unprepared for mass casualties from a toxic gas, and fail to decontaminate spill victims. In the urgency to leave and the uncertainty of how long they'll be away from home, many people leave pets and livestock behind. And, unaccountably, an entire neighborhood is left behind in the exclusion zone for several days. Over 17 days, hazmat crews struggle to patch the largest ever breach of a chlorine tank, while the spill site continues to release toxic gas unpredictably, causing more injuries. And in the early days of the spill, federal responders, such as the EPA and Coast Guard, are prevented from going to the spill site and hot zone by local and state interference at the behest of the railroad company. Why? Meanwhile, residents are repeatedly allowed to visit the exclusion zone surrounding the hot zone, to retrieve animals or feed them, and yet are allowed to continue to leave animals behind, necessitating more visits. While some residents become impatient to return home for good, others are fearful, especially after reports of chemical smells and illness upon these visits. Only after several days of allowing residents to visit the exclusion zone do officials discover that chlorine and another toxic chemical that spilled have mixed, creating chlorinated compounds. And when officials try to limit public discussion at daily meetings, a divide grows within the community as if split by a railroad. Many old-timers in Alberton remain loyal to the memory of its railroad roots, unhappy with those who would question the response. Some evacuees are attacked in the media as taking advantage of the railroad and as being greedy for talking to lawyers. Unhappy with the attempts to shut down public discussion and distrustful of officials' reassurance for their health and the safety of their homes, a large group of evacuees form their own coalition. Many of the aforementioned issues were not made public at the time. After 17 days, the Alberton area is declared safe for re-entry, though the spill site has yet to be cleaned up. Health officials promise residents that their homes are safe and the air is clean, and that, generally speaking, most everyone should fully recover soon, if they haven't already. But many residents remain fearful of contamination, experiencing aggravated illness upon returning home. Some families abandon their homes altogether. Yet they also find their symptoms are triggered away from Alberton, and despite the promises from health officials of full recovery, many spill victims remain ill for years to come. Some begin a long journey to find answers as to exactly what happened and why they are still sick, seeking help from various officials, including the National EPA Ombudsman, who agrees to open an investigation into the Alberton spill. Some spill victims seek justice in court, wanting compensation for their chronic illness and accountability from the railroad that caused the catastrophe that forever changed their lives. Evidence suggests that the railroad had chronic safety and maintenance problems, and plaintiffs claim the derailment should have been prevented. Some people allege the railroad had prior warning of the broken track, but failed to fix it in time. This podcast largely follows the journey of those people who refuse to be polite about being poisoned. They want answers, they want truth, they want justice, and they want to be heard. The story to come will bear witness to that journey. Thank you for listening to their voices. This podcast has 6 parts. Part 1, The Spill, is the entirety of Book 1, and in Book 2, Parts 2 through 6. Aftermath, The Long Haul, Light at the End of the Tunnel, Derailed, and The Last Train. I hope you'll follow the complete story. Next time on GASSED, the true story of a toxic train derailment. After their Montana Rail Link train derails outside Alberton, Montana, 2 engineers struggle for their lives to escape a deadly gas cloud. Till then, this is Ron Scholl. Thanks for listening. This podcast is adapted from the book GASSED, the true story of a toxic train derailment. Visit Amazon.com to see the 2-book series. To access support material in the book, such as maps, photos, illustrations, and video links, visit my Facebook page GASSED, the true story, or watch my GASSED playlist on my YouTube channel at RL Scholl.